All right. In order to honor everyone's time and to make sure that we're able to end on time and hopefully maybe still have some lunch before we go back to jobs or whatever we're doing, I just want to welcome you. My name is Mel, and I am Program Director for Banyan Tree Women's Collective, a 501c3 based out of the San Francisco Bay Peninsula. I am in my office in Menlo Park. And I'd love to know where everybody's from. I know where a few of you are from. You can put it in the chat box. And I will continue to let people in as Yvonne is taking us through this talk today. If you have any additional questions, Yvonne will give her information out after, as well as it will be coming to you in a thank you email. That being said, if for some reason you don't receive that information and you want to talk to her, you can easily email info@banyanwomen.org and we will connect you. This will also be put up onto our YouTube channel, so you can do a replay, or if you find this information interesting, you think about somebody you know that this may be helpful for, then you can give them the link as well so they can get this knowledge. So what is Banyan? We just believe that wellness, choice, access, and experience is a human right. We should all have choices to these wellness tools in our tool belt for our individual health journeys, because we're all on very different journeys. We all have very different needs. And I'm excited today to hear from Yvonne. She is actually in Colorado. And so thank you for taking the time to join us, because it is not your lunchtime now. It's past. And without any further ado, I'm going to pass it on. Remove me. There you are, Yvonne.
All right. Well, thank you, Melissa. It is a real pleasure to be here with everyone. This is my first Banyan class, so I'm excited. I'm excited to be here with your community. I will go ahead and start because I'm going to share my screen. I've got some slides. So if anyone cannot see that, please let me know. We should all be good here. Cool. Today is all about loving your body. We're going to talk about rethinking we make resolutions and goals around our health habits, and really you can kind of extend that to anything you're working on, any kind of change you want to facilitate in your life, and also rethinking diets and what they mean and how they affect us, especially as women. So I'm really well known for jam packing my slides with information. So I will try to keep my pace pretty good, but also I want to make sure that there's room if you have a question. I like it to be interactive. So I know it's an intimate group we have here today. So if you do have questions, feel free to throw that. I will keep my eyeballs on that, as well as I know as Melissa and Jamie will too. Real quick introduction, because I'm probably new to most people here. Yvonne Matthews, again, is my name. I am a board certified holistic nutritionist, and I'm actually just getting ready to start my master's in clinical nutrition and integrative medicine in a month. So I'm excited to be on the other side again and be a student and continue learning. One thing I think I love about nutrition and health is there's always new information that we learn. And so it's a never ending process. And I think you have to love it if you're going to be in that process, right? I have my private practice. I've had it for about 6 years here in Denver, Colorado. I'm originally from Southern California. So not the Bay Area, but I definitely love California. It's very near and dear to my heart. My private practice is called Nutrition Designed. I will provide these slides to Melissa. If you do need them for any reason, you can reach out to them, or you can reach out to me, however you prefer or they prefer. But I have some links in here too. They're not really necessary, but just in case to make things easier. I'm also a lead nutrition instructor at a local nutrition school here in Denver called the School of Holistic Nutrition Therapy. We started in person a year and a half ago, but of course, I'm sure you're all familiar, we had to pivot and go fully online. So now it's all online, which is also wonderful because it means it's accessible to anyone. So that is kind of cool. There's my Instagram handle. I try to post every day a little something. It's a little bit different than other nutritionist posts. I'm usually not posting very specific nutrition tips. It's more along the lines of what you're going to learn here today. It's mindset, it's habits, and then there's nutrition that trickles along the way there. But really what I believe, and you're going to learn as you keep going through this with me in the next 45 minutes, is that I believe food is not just medicine. It is so many other things. So it's part of our self-care, it's part of our community, and it's part of our culture, and it's part of pleasure. So I believe all food is good, and nothing really should be labeled healthy or unhealthy in the way I view things. So we're going to talk all about that today. It's really an integral part of today's message. It is also part of what I do is help people get to the root of what's going on if they have specific health issues as well. So mine was getting off of birth control after 12 years of being on it, and then getting off of it and having a whole host of health issues, including, full adult acne in my late 20s, really debilitating, painful periods. And that's what set me down this kind of rabbit hole of holistic health and nutrition. And so in that experience, I went back to school, became a nutritionist, and now help people do very similar things, and have evolved as well in my practice to not just eat this, don't eat this, but talking about health and nutrition more on a broader scale, right? So not just specifics, but what does it mean? And especially for us women, what does it mean for us? So with that, we're going to just dive right into this juicy stuff. As you can see, I wasn't kidding when I say I like to load my PowerPoint slides with information. You don't have to take notes if you don't want to. If you want to just sit and absorb it, I think that's a beautiful way as well. But I want to start with talking about this anti-diet and the Haze movement that has been kind of taking over, if you are familiar, and if you're not, you're going to get familiar today. But really this and if you are curious at all, I leave some references in here too, so you can go and look up other people's accounts and books and things like that, because I think it's important, the exposure. So called Anti-Diet by registered dietitian Christy Harrison is a fantastic book. She's really the person that kind of started really talking about this revolution. And then there's an Instagram account, Jamila Jami. I can never pronounce her name right. I'm sure I just butchered it. She has an Instagram account called I Weigh, and also it's a really beautiful account. She's actually an actress, and she's just an advocate for the anti-diet movement. And so she has a whole host of really awesome content on there as well. And then HAES stands for Health at Every Size. The founder of this movement was Dr. Lindo Bacon. I can't make that up, Dr. Bacon. I wish that was my last name. But these are kind of some of the pioneers for where this movement has started in New Zealand. And really what they are trying to come down to as well, not just on the philosophical side, but a practical side, which is let's start eating and using food and nutrition from a very mindful and intuitive way. And on the next slide, I talk a little bit more about intuitive eating, because they are very different things. And depending on who you talk to or are exposed to, people get very charged about these things. So I want to make sure you know the difference. Really what it comes down to is resisting the diet culture. And so questioning why we're doing it, right? Why do we need to feel like we need to be a certain number on a scale, or does the number on the scale indicate our health? And so the answer is no. And a lot of the studies now are being read properly so that we know and we can understand that really weight is not a great measure of our health. There are so many other measures, and I have a whole slide on that too. So don't worry, we're gonna kind of dip in and out here, and I'll try to cover as much as I can. It's a big topic and a passionate topic of mine, so I will probably just be nonstop talking for the next hour. And so we can back up a little bit and say, okay, well, if we're going to be anti-diet, where did the word diet even come from? And originally, the word diet was a Greek word, started from the Greek word dieta, and it meant a way of life or a manner of living. And I think that's a really beautiful sentiment and a beautiful word to encapsulate that. And so it's unfortunate that our Western culture has taken diet, really associated it with weight loss, right? And commercialized it. So I would love to get back to that original definition of the word diet. If I say it going forward, I'll qualify what I mean by that and which one I'm referring to, but just know where it came from. It really was intended as a really lovely, meaningful word. And so the truth is, like I said, with weight, a person's health and their body size or the way they look really is not an indicator of their health. And it's not the, I think people would say it's not the only indicator. I would say it's not really even a good indicator. And so health and wellness and well-being, whatever term you would like to use, is really more than just what you eat. It's a whole, right? It's a whole way of living. And so redefining that is what we're here to do today. And hopefully you can keep going on with this conversation. And that's, I think, one of the ways we can continue doing this work is to have conversations with people that we trust and love and feel safe with in involving this topic and really getting the word out there, because it still is very new. So mindful eating is a way of eating very mindfully and intuitively. It's usually slowing down with our meal. There's a whole bunch of steps. You could Google it and find like 100 different ways to be a mindful eater. It doesn't have to be rocket science. It's really just about getting conscious about what you're eating, the plate of food or the snack that's in front of you, really enjoying it, whatever it is. You know, you could take some deep breaths before you eat. You could have gratitude and imagine where the food came from and all the steps it took to get to the plate in front of you. A whole bunch of different ways. So that's mindful eating. Intuitive eating incorporates mindful eating, but is a little bit larger of an umbrella and really is a very large part of this anti-diet movement and culture. And research is showing that 90% of the diets that we go on are unsustainable. And I'm sure many of you here, maybe most of you have tried a diet. I mean, gosh, I can't remember the first time I did a diet. I remember being pretty young when the South Beach diet came out. I think I was maybe in high school or college. And I remember my mom and I doing the South Beach diet together. And I even remember at one point we joined Jenny Craig together. And so, I mean, if you're anything like me, you've probably been on a diet or tried a yo-yo diet or a fad diet at some point in your life. And so research is saying that 90% of those aren't even sustainable. And even if you do lose the weight or some weight, they don't work beyond a 2 or 3 year period. And then on top of that, a lot of the times you gain back even more weight than you lost originally. And so this is very detrimental to our health. It puts a lot of stress and a lot of strain on our body, and our physical body, and on our mental state, right? We always feel like failures when we feel like we backslid or we are not enough, right? Because we couldn't do this thing that somebody else did, right? And so the approach with intuitive eating is really teach us to get in touch with our hunger cues and really trusting our choices around our food and nutrition and getting in touch with our body. And you can even see here on the right-hand side of the slide, a little bit about the diet mindset versus an intuitive eating mindset, right? So a diet mindset might be, can I have this? Versus an intuitive eating mindset would be, do I want this? And will this be skinny or will this nourish me? How do I look versus how do I feel? And it's a non-diet approach that was created by 2 dietitians in the 1995 year, Dr. Evelyn Triboli and Elise Richt. And they actually have a book called Intuitive Eating. They also have a workbook that companions it if you would like to look into those. They're great, great books. And they have 10 principles of intuitive eating. And we're not going to go into those 10 principles today because that would be a whole hour together. But they're all the things we're talking about right now. Questioning the diet culture, getting in touch with your hunger cues, how to do that, right? They give you a scale. And it's a really lovely way to start looking at the way you eat. And as of 2019, so 2 years ago, there are over 100 research studies proving that intuitive eating works, lowering triglycerides, building your self-esteem, having a better body image, coping skills even, optimism, and overall satisfaction for life. So it's not about weight loss. It's not about another diet. It's about a way of eating, right? Going back to that original Greek word of dieta, of the word diet. So before I go on to talking about resolutions and how to build habits, I want to talk quick, because I get this question a lot when we talk about this subject, is, well, what about BMI, right? And so BMI is our body mass index. Oh gosh, tongue twister for me today. BMI, and it's that scale that measures our height versus our weight, right? And it tells us if we're underweight, healthy weight, overweight, obese, you name it. And so this was created by actually a mathematician. So guy had nothing to do with nutrition or nutrition science. He was asked to create a scale actually for a group of people. This was never intended to be a scale that we used as we use it today for an individual. And so really, I'm here to tell you that BMI is bullpucky. It doesn't matter. I am 5'2". I have been an athlete my whole life. I played volleyball and rode crew in college. And I have always been a very muscular person. I have always technically been overweight on the BMI scale. And that also, especially for a teenager, right? Like that weighs on you, especially if you don't know better, nobody's talking about it. And so the problem with BMI, there's so many, I told you a few already. One of them is it doesn't account for bone mass. It doesn't account for our fat proportion to our muscle proportion. And our bone and our muscle both weigh more than fat. And so really, it's not a great measure of our weight or our health. So there's one great way to do this, because I have had mental struggles with going to the doctor because I don't want to get on the scale, right? So I've thrown the scale out of my house. We don't have one in this house. Probably been 3 or 4 years since I've measured, stepped on a scale. So one way around this is you can actually just talk to the doctor and actually refuse to be weighed. Unless there is some kind of a health issue for you, that is completely in your right. And I would encourage you to do that if that's something that weighs on your mind, as it did mine. And find a doctor that supports you, that is open to having this conversation. I often find the female doctors at least are more willing to have that conversation with us women than some of the male doctors out there. But just some more information that hopefully is helpful. So forget your BMI, not a good marker of health or your weight. And then I wanted to define some terms too before we move forward. Body positivity, because there's a whole bunch of terms out there right now. Body positivity, it's just this whole social movement that's focused on empowering us, individuals, women, men, regardless of our weight and our size. I think in the past year or so, we've now seen how racist some of the policies are out there. And I, again, don't want to get on my soapbox here, but we have to talk about that with weight too. And even BMI, right? I'm a Mexican American. My body composition is going to be very different than my Caucasian female friend, who is even the same height as me, right? Maybe even the same physical activity as me. And so all of this stuff needs to be taken into account. And body positivity is helping do that, which is really wonderful. Body acceptance versus body love. These are two that get confused a lot. And for a while, I used to hear the word acceptance and think, well, why would you, like, that just seems like you're apathetic, like, oh, body acceptance. Oh, okay, I guess I'll just accept my body. I always thought love was better, right? Like, wouldn't you want to just love your body versus just like accept it? But actually, I was very wrong. Body acceptance is more about taking the charge away from our body in general and being at a more neutral point and having more respect for our body and all the things that it does, not weight, not just beauty or its physical stature or any of that. And then body love, and I put a wavering, the word wavering with a question mark, because although body love is wonderful and we all should aspire to love our bodies, if we're just focusing on the body, then that love will come and go with how we feel about that body, right? Maybe we're having a bad day. Oh, body love, right? No good. We're having a great day. We feel good. We put a fantastic outfit on and we're like, yeah, body love, it's all good. But if we are just focusing on the body, then we still have that propensity to have a good or a bad feeling about it. So really, body acceptance actually is kind of the goal. Well, they're both the goal, right? They're both the goal. But body image resilience is really where it's at. This is a new term that's being kind of thrown around. There's a book called More Than a Body by two twins, Dr. Lindsay and Lexi Kite. And they wrote this book and they coined this term body image resilience. And the idea here is that you're going to say, yeah, all of those terms are fantastic. Everybody is full, like, yes, all of this, and then all of this other stuff. Let's take it a step further. And so that's really what body image resilience is doing. It's saying that your body is an instrument, not just an ornament, right? We're not just something to be adorned and looked at and be beautiful, right? Walk down a runway and feel good. Our body isn't just this thing that we do praise or condemn. It is a whole other instrument, right? And so really that the acceptance comes from, and it's kind of like taking it away from the body. So we are more than our bodies, right? And so you ask yourself, if we go further and we are all beautiful, to ask what other ways we can see, because really, I think what we're coming to there is that our worth and our beauty are tied in with our body. And so if our body is beautiful, then we are worthy, right? And so what are other ways we can find self-worth outside of our body? So whether that's with your values, efforts, interests, or can it just be nothing? Can it just be, I am, I exist, I am, and so I am worthy? Maybe you don't need to qualify it at all, right? So taking the charge away from the body there. So those are two books there that are fantastic. I just mentioned the More Than a Body is kind of where a lot of this comes from. And then Body Kindness is a really wonderful book as well by dietitian Rip Strickfield. And it's really all about being a little bit more compassionate and questioning all this diet, anti-diet culture that we have created. So that's supposed to say, sorry, I'm not an English major either, so occasionally there's a typo. What if your body is not wrong, but the thoughts about it are? And that's really the question to kind of take away here from this slide is it's not that your body is wrong, it's maybe the way we think about it might be wrong or might be something we need to challenge. And again, I was mentioning earlier, starting the conversation with friends and trusted people that you know would be willing to have a compassionate, kind conversation around this. Maybe you could even do a book club, right, around one of these books. Refusing to be weighed at the doctor's office, if that is a trigger point for you, as it was for me. And then also seeing women as allies versus competition. So a lot of our body image challenges come from being in competition or feeling like we need to be in competition for women, whether that's to be the prettiest in the room or the smartest in the room or get the job or whatever the thing is. If we can, and that comes from viewing things as finite resources, right? There's only a limited amount of this. There's only one soulmate. There's only, whatever the thing is, but it's fixed and it's finite. And if I can be the most beautiful or the best, blah, 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 then I can get that thing. Rather, we should be or could be looking at it from there's an infinite amount of resources. And if we choose the women to be our allies instead of our competition, then we can achieve so much more and we can actually band together as a group and start real change, right? And resolve some of our self-worth issues that are around body image. One thing I did want to touch on, as I talk about a lot with my clients, is this shame guilt spiral that we often get sucked into, especially with food. And diet culture facilitates it 100%. It's not their fault, but they definitely they piggyback on it and they want to profit from it, right? They're going to commercialize something. Somebody's going to commercialize anything that they can to make $1. And so if we can acknowledge it and understand what it is, it helps get us out of the thing that maybe we don't even know we're in. So guilt is really a feeling of having done something wrong. Okay. So it is more of a, I did something wrong, versus shame is a sense that you're actually a person. So you actually internalize that guilt. So you did something wrong is what you're saying with guilt. With shame, you're saying, I am wrong. So you're actually internalizing that guilt or that habit or that action. And now you're internalizing as you are that thing. And so what happens is, you can see from this little diagram here, is we get into this binge restrict cycle with food and drink, where we have a trigger, we binge, then we feel guilty, then we shame ourselves, we restrict the thing, we say, oh, I'm never gonna drink again, oh, I'm never gonna eat cupcakes again, oh, I'm never gonna buy that box of cookies again. And we think we're gonna get relief. We get anxious, we start feeling other emotions, and then we have cravings, and then we get triggered again, and then we go through the whole cycle. And this happens with so many other things too, other than food and drink, but that's my world. So this happens a lot with plants. And this is that all or nothing thinking, right? Black or white, good or bad, on or off, healthy, unhealthy. This is why I don't like to use those terms when I can. They're so ingrained in our semantics and our language that it's really a challenge. We have to be really conscious when we say these things. And even I catch myself qualifying things as good or bad or healthy or unhealthy. But really acknowledging that thinking when it happens is really the first step. And even acknowledging that we get into these cycles is also a step. Oops, I was not ready to go to that slide. So where do you start? Watch your shoulding, right? You've probably all heard this, don't should all over yourself. So when you say the word should, you're usually giving some indicator that you should be doing something differently, even though you're not. That's a great indication that you might be in this cycle, or you might be, triggering some emotional behaviors. So then trying to eat mindfully, right? Slowing down, taking more time with our food. Watching the social media accounts that we follow, right? If something triggers you or makes you feel bad about your choices, or stop following that person. I don't care if they're a friend or an acquaintance or your neighbor. You can even mute them if you don't want to completely unfollow them. But really watching, take in, right? That's a part of diet culture, and it's a part of that negative self-talk that we can get into. And then start talking to yourself like you would talk to a friend. And then self-care as well, right? So you can even journal through some of these emotions. Movement is a fantastic way. I know Melissa's a huge, dancer and mover. It's a great way to move emotions. It's a great way to express yourself, and also be grateful for the bodies that we have that allow us to move, right? Breath work, drawing, painting, you name it. There's so many ways we can help to move through these emotions and cues and triggers and things like that, that help us rather than hurt us or keep us stuck. I saw this. So originally, when we talk about rethinking resolutions, we often think of the New Year's, and I've done a talk very to this around the New Year time. And I found this meme, and I thought it was cute. She says, what's your New Year's resolution? Me, well, I'm already pretty cool, but I want to get cooler. And so I thought that was great. I kind of thought it was a wonderful reminder for us here, right? So if we have a goal or a resolution, doesn't have to mean that we're not good enough. It just means we want to be even better, right? We're good and we want to do this. So, all right, let's talk about resolutions. A lot of these statistics are from the New Year's resolutions because that's when we tend to make resolutions. But research shows that up to 45% of Americans make resolutions and 22% ditch them in less than a week. By the second week in January, talking about January 1st here, but you make a resolution by the second week in February, 80% have already deemed themselves as failed. And so what happens there is it's that cycle again, right? We try to do something, we fail, or we internalize that guilt because I didn't do something. Oh, now I am bad. Now I am a failure. And we get back onto that negative cycle again, that shame, guilt cycle. So really we want to rethink resolutions, right? So if only 8% are successful in achieving them, then that's not a very good statistics. You know, if that was a success, 8% is not a very good success rate. So there's a couple things that I think we should look at first, or could look at first, is January is a really big month for the weight loss industry, right? They make a lot of money at this time because we all want to lose weight. We all have these resolutions. I'm going to do XYZ on January 1st. And the weight loss industry knows it and they want to make money off of it. So one, recognize that. And two, maybe question it. Question that diet culture. Why do we need to be this weight? Why do we need to look this way? Why do we need to have beauty, right? Like why, what's the real point here? And so I always like to point to this 2012 study that followed participants from adolescence into adulthood, and also noted that, and this is kind of part of the other study I mentioned earlier, but that people will regain the majority of the weight that they've lost, if not more, within 5 to 7 years. Again, this yo-yo dieting, as they term it, really puts a physical stress and a mental stress, right, on us. And so do we want to make these resolutions, or maybe goals are a better way of looking at it? And there's nothing wrong with resolutions. You can make a resolution. It's pretty synonymous to the word goal, but it really comes down to semantics for you, what makes you feel good. And then whatever you decide to use, make a plan, right? So one of the things I really help my clients with is making a plan around not just nutritional change, but lifestyle change and habit change. And we go through this thing called SMART goals, where SMART is an acronym to make real, very detailed, specific, small changes and implement them in a way that is easier and kinder and really sets us up for success, rather than just saying, oh, here's my goal, and then hoping and wishing that it happens, right? Okay, so goals and habits. A goal is a desired outcome or a result when plans or commits to achieving. That's great, but it's not going to get you there, right? You got a goal, you got to make a roadmap to get to that goal. So that's where habits come in. They say that, so habits are a behavior that's repeated over an extended amount of time. So you're not going to have a habit for a week and then never do it again, right? A habit is something that happens almost automatically, on and on and on. And so really, they say half of what we do daily are repeated behavior, our habits. So we can use that to our advantage and take our goals plus our habits, and we can really get further along on our path to success, or whatever we deem is where we want to be. There are 2 fantastic books around this and 2 very specific strategies I want to just quickly mention. James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits. Wonderful read if you've not checked that out. He talks about there are 4 stages of habit, or a habit loop. That's what the image is on this slide. It's cue, craving, response, reward. Apologies for my dog. Let me close my door here. Okay, so that's it's a pretty easy one to remember. It's cue is something that triggers your brain to initiate a behavior. Craving is the motivational force behind that habit, or every habit. Response is the actual habit you perform. And then there's a reward, right? And that reward is a response delivering some reward at the end of your goal or at the end of the habit. And so we need these 4 things to create habits. And another gentleman, BJ Fogg, wrote a book called Tiny Habits. He has very similar habit creation here. It's motivation, ability, and prompt. And basically what they're all saying is that we need something will trigger, right? Cue or whatever, craving will trigger something, and then we can choose to act on that trigger, whether we do the thing or we don't do the thing. Really what that comes to is there a reward on the other side of that? And so I like to always say, so when you have a reward, oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. She never barks. Okay. So on the other side of the response is the reward. When we have a reward, we have a physiological response in our body. So a neurotransmitter called dopamine is produced, and this is our reward hormone or neurotransmitter. And what that does is that once that is in our brain, we crave that dopamine hit, right? That's something we all want. And if we can trigger that with a reward as close to the habit as we want, as we can, then doing the thing is a lot easier. So a great example is exercise. If you want to create a movement or exercise, you kind of get an automatic reward with those endorphins that actually produce dopamine right away, even while we're exercising or moving, depending on how long you're moving for. But that cues our body to want to do that thing again. And I know, I'm sure there's a few people here that are like, well, I hate exercising or I hate moving and that doesn't work for me. And that's fine. I would encourage you, to find something you love doing, because that helps. And also, you got to do it over an extended amount of time. It's not like a one and done thing. So that's a real way to make habit change easier. And even James Clear has a couple questions that make that plan, how do we get habits to stick, a lot simpler as well. And there are these questions at the bottom here. So how can you make that the activity or habit that you want, how can you make it obvious? So I like to say, like, on your worst day, can you still do that thing? So you want to make it that obvious or that easy, right? So if you want to learn to floss your teeth every day, do you brush your teeth? Can you attach that flossing to the brushing? And even on your worst day, can you still do that? Probably, right? Or maybe it's leaving a floss toothpick in your car or something when you're stuck in traffic, right? So you got to plan it to be obvious. And I always say, like, your worst day, plan to make it accessible and easy on your worst day. And then also satisfying, right? So how do you get a reward there? And again, the reward is, how do you attach it as close to the habit as you can? So again, I'll go back to the exercise or movement example. If you want to start an exercise routine or movement, regular movement, your reward is probably not going to be, I'm going to go buy a nice expensive pair of tights when I work out every day for a week, because that reward is not immediately after you do that habit, right? So you want that reward immediately after you do the habit. So for exercise, there's a little built in, but I also like to say, because even if it's not exercise and movement, if you are talking to yourself internally, like you would talk to a newborn who took its first steps, well, maybe not a newborn, but a baby that took its first steps, like, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like that mom that's like, oh my gosh, you're the best. You just took your first steps and they're so excited and they're going crazy. And the baby doesn't understand what's going on. He hears it and he wants that to happen again, or she, and they'll keep learning to walk, and we keep enforcing that. And we need to be that same cheerleader, that same mom internally when we want to make a habit stick. And so that internal chatter will actually produce a dopamine hit. And so if you can do that at the end of the habit that you want to create, you keep doing that, at some point your brain will start to learn to automatically have a dopamine hit at the end of whatever habit it is. So that's a great tip when I was learning about habits and how to create real successful habit change. That reward, just the internal self-talk, the positive internal self-talk, is a huge, huge way to reward yourself immediately, and also free. You don't have to pay anything for it. So that's a little bit about habits and goals. I always get the question about, well, what happens when I don't have any willpower, right? Well, actually, willpower is a misnomer. I learned this at Bowman College when I went to nutrition school. Maybe Melissa remembers. I don't know, maybe it was my teacher too who said it. But they always said willpower was actually a thing called low blood sugar or blood sugar imbalance. And so I like to always point to the blood sugar roller coaster here. And you can see when your blood sugar, so I'll back up just for a second because we got a little bit of time. When your blood sugar is stable, it's on a slow roll. It goes up and down like on a hill, and that's normal. It's supposed to do that. When it gets low, we get hungry. When it's high, we've usually eaten. It has this slow, nice little rolling hill. And that's what stays in the middle of that yellow zone there on the image. Imbalanced blood sugar, or the blood sugar roller coaster, is when we go up and down, like really high, like a roller coaster. And so what happens there is when we're at the very bottom, we get all of these crazy physiological things that happen. We get hungry, we have cravings, we get irritable. That's that hangry right at the bottom there. When we're on a roller coaster, it goes from high to low real fast. And sometimes we don't feel like we have control over that. And so one of my nutrition teachers always told me that lack of willpower was really just mismanaged blood sugar. So one of the first things I work with most clients on is blood sugar balance. And people get so confused because they're like, well, I don't have diabetes, or I'm not pre-diabetic, or whatever the thing is. We could all use some help with blood sugar balance a lot of the time, especially all the information that we've got out there right now. And I will just tell you, the number one thing you can do to balance your blood sugar from the very beginning of the day is to eat breakfast. And I don't care if it's a bagel or cream cheese, or if it's a breakfast salad or smoothie. If you start to build that habit, you will really start to see some changes in the rest of your day, especially in those afternoon cravings and maybe even the energy throughout the day. So yes. And Melissa even said blood sugar is best buds with your hormones. 100%. The two are definitely best buds. So I think this is a real key. In fact, at the end of the slide, you can take a screenshot if you want to. I have a smoothie recipe on there for you. I don't drink smoothies year round. I don't drink smoothies every day, especially here in Colorado when it's snowy in the winter. Last thing I want is a smoothie. But it's summer. It's 95 degrees here in Denver today. Sometimes a cold smoothie in the morning is wonderful. And I have friends too that drink warm smoothies because they don't drink cold food. So you can definitely make it whatever you want, but I put one in there if you want to give it a try. It's like a chocolate mint smoothie bowl. It's pretty tasty. And Charles Duhigg wrote a book called The Power of Habit. So another habit book if you want, if you're interested. He says willpower isn't just a skill. It's a muscle like the rest of the muscles in your arms or legs, and it gets tired. And as it works harder, it gets tired, so there's less power left over for other things. This is a great reason to make habits, right? So when we make habits, we don't have to think of all of the choices every day, right? Was why Steve Jobs wore the same outfit every day, right? That black turtleneck and jeans. One less decision he had to make, so he had the willpower and the decision-making power to make the more important decisions, right? For him, dress was not an important decision. So a little bit about willpower there. One thing I am very passionate about as well is seasonal actions and habits. So I love to eat seasonally and live seasonally. Shifting our diet with the seasons is a great way not just to stay in check with ourselves and touch base on what we need, but also to stay in harmony with nature. If we could learn anything from nature, it's they don't stay the same, right? They're constantly changing and evolving and growing. And so what can we take as a cue from the seasons to implement in our own lives? And so I do a seasonal thing Every season I'll have like a reset, like a 7-day check-in. It's not a detox, it's not a cleanse, but we just kind of touch base with what the season might be teaching us. So in fall, it's things like coming back home, right? We got coming, like literal homecoming in school. We're contracting our energy. We're coming back to the home, right? In summer, we were out doing all the things to where we are right now. In fall, it's more about coming home and maybe a more balanced diet. And these terms are terms that I can explain further if you would like to talk more in depth. But I strongly believe in eating with the seasons too, and eating local, eating fresh, all that good stuff, right? It's more sustainable for us and our earth. But each season has a specific way we want to eat as well. Winter is going to be more of a restorative time, more time to rest, more time to sleep, right? We've got darker days. We're going to be moving differently. Spring is a time of coming back, right? Renewed energy, new life, restoration. And then summer, what we're in right now, is very expansive. We're creating, we're producing, we're out there living, we're being very social. And cleansing diet, even though people don't like the word cleansing, really all that means is it's going to be more fresh produce, more fresh seasonal vegetables and fruits, and less of the heavy fats and meats. Still eating them, but it's going to be very carb heavy because of the fruits and vegetables. So it's cleansing diet. It's a cleansing diet, right? I mean, a diet and there's a lifestyle, not just a yo-yo diet or a fad diet. But it's going to be about fresh foods and cooling foods because it's hot out. And because vegetables and fruits are carbohydrates, it's going to be a very high carbohydrate diet, which freaks people out. But we need that energy. All those carbohydrates give us glucose, which gives us energy, gives us stable blood sugar to go do all the things, right? To go out for the hike, to go for the long walk or long run with a friend, to travel, right? To do all of those things. And so really what we can do is take a beautiful cue from the seasons on how we might want to live. And the reason I mention this is because we can change our habits and our goals for the seasons. And in fact, if we look at the seasons, January 1st is the worst time to make the resolutions that we make, because what is winter? Winter is a time to dream and a time to restore. It's not a time to be taking action on all these crazy things that we decide we need to do, right? Do a juice cleanse in the middle of it's snowing outside. We've all been there, right? I've been there for sure. So I like to really get into the seasons and take some of my habit cues and goal cues from that as well. All right, just gonna wind down here in the last few minutes. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I think I see a few here. I will read them in a second. Health measures. So what are other ways we can measure our health if we're not talking about getting on a scale or BMI or any of that stuff? You can look at what you eat, right? You can look at how you eat, right? And that would even be like, do I sit down while I eat? Am I savoring? Am I tasting the things that I'm eating? How do you move? How do you practice self-care? What is your attitude in your mental state, right? How do you talk to yourself? Do you have a positive attitude around that and life? And then even community and our sociability. COVID, I mean, I see a lot of clients in the last 6 months coming out of COVID saying I've gained X amount of pounds. I got to get back to my health. I got to get back to the number on the scale. And I think it's a real accurate reflection on how strong community and socializing play on our health, right? And so I often just encourage people to slowly reincorporate the things that they used to do in their lives. We don't need to do some crazy fad diet. We don't need to go keto. We don't need to go paleo. We don't need to intermittent fast as a blanket statement. I'm just saying that if you're doing that and it's working for you, great. It doesn't work for a lot of us. And just like the fad diets, it makes us feel like a failure when it doesn't work for us. So really coming back to some of these other health measures and these habits, right? And redefining what those mean as of tackling our own health and our own mental health too. So what's next? I always like to have a takeaway from, I know it's a lot of information. I just talked for about an hour, talked your ear off. Here's a few steps that you can incorporate going forward. Commit to stop dieting, right? Get out of that spiral and out of that diet culture. And a great way to do this is ditch the scale or slowly step your way off of the scale, right? Like sometimes it can be a habit to get on the scale every day at 7 in the morning, right before you get in the shower. Maybe it's, I'm only going to do it every other day. Then it trickles to once a week. Then it trickles to once a month. Then it trickles to once a year. And then maybe you're not doing it anymore, right? So maybe even that is a habit that needs to be ditched. Appreciate your body and all body, body diversity and further, right? So you can keep going on. So what is the body? What does it mean? Does it mean anything? What does it mean to me, right? Is it tied in with my self-worth, and why? And how can I find other ways to be worthy without looking at my body? Challenge the media. So really go anti-diet, question the diet culture, question the social media accounts that you're following. Find some way to find gratitude in your body and the abilities that you have physically. It's a great way to, to start cultivating that body acceptance, right? Evaluate some of your values. Can you have values that are outside your body? Be kind to your body. Talk to your body like you would your best friends. Honor your hunger. So really getting in touch with your hunger cues and eating when you're hungry, right? I've heard if you think you're hungry, drink a glass of water. And while I think that's fantastic and many of us are dehydrated and we should be drinking a glass of water, I've gone all hour and I haven't had any water. So that's fine. But if you're hungry, eat. Drinking a glass of drinking a glass of water and denying your hunger is another way that diet culture can sneak into our brain, right? So really just be conscious of these things. Find some community and support, right? Like go read one of those books and get a book club together or get some of your friends together and like have some community around it and really explore these topics. And in the end, number 10 is one of the most important. Be patient and kind with yourself and others, because we have had, gosh, how many decades of this talk that we have to undo in our head. And so it's going to take some time and it takes some patience to unlearn. Okay, here's your summer smoothie bowl recipe if you want to screenshot it. If you need this, like I said, please let Melissa, Jamie, or I know. And then last but not least, they will share this with you. I created this daily wellness journal. If you would like to start kind of getting in touch a little bit with some more mindful eating, there's lots of great places, little things to check off and places to check in with yourself as well, right? Not just what you look like, but how you feel. Oh boy.
Can you put the smoothie recipe back on? I'm trying to screenshot it. It moved quickly. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. There you go. And then I will just go through this chat real quick. Yeah, Melissa said she doesn't allow the doctors to weigh her anymore. I think it's fantastic. I don't know why it took me so long to figure that out, but sometimes we need someone else to tell us that we can do it before we know it's even an option for us. And then Robin says, I remember when I went to the doctor and celebrated going from obese to overweight by losing a few pounds, celebrated by being overweight. Yeah, I don't allow them to weigh me anymore. Yes, there's some great, I mean, even I know like Adele lost some weight this year, right? Or last year. And I think the latest one is Ree Drummond. She's the pioneer woman. She's like a chef on the cooking channel. And like anytime we see those before and after pictures, that's also diet culture, like infiltrating our minds. So yeah, definitely calling these things out when we see them is a great way to acknowledge them and even have conversations with people around them. And so yeah, I think this though, especially women, right? We get put into these boxes. They literally are trying to make us smaller and our voices smaller by telling us we need to be this thing, right? We need to be in this box. And so, yeah, when we see it, we should call it out for sure. in a nice way, right? Not cancel culture, like we don't need to do that, but have a conversation around it. Like it's a great opportunity just to have a conversation. You're welcome, Lynn. And it looks like Melissa put a link in there for eating seasonally. Definitely check that out. I'm going to stop sharing now unless anybody else needs this. For the health measure, I mentioned, Jessica asked, measuring by how you eat, but how do I know if I'm eating healthy or not, or getting enough nutrition? Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say really listening to what your body wants, and it takes some time to cultivate that. It is just like the willpower thing. It's a muscle that we need to exercise. We've been so taught not to listen to it that we need to learn how to listen to it again. And so that takes a little bit of time. I would say internally, we know if we're eating healthy or not. I would challenge you and ask you to ask yourself that same question. And also, if you want a real literal answer, going and shopping around the perimeter of the grocery store is a great way to get things that are fresher and more whole, so less processed. Farmers markets, another great way to support yourself, especially in summer, with whole foods that are fresh and very nutrient dense, but also not getting too fixated on those things, right? So allowing yourself to enjoy all foods at some point.
Right. And I just want to interject real quick, especially for Jessica, because I know you're in the Bay Area. We are so blessed here with amazing produce that grows year round. And we are probably one of the most diverse places with our food and produce. So farmers markets are every day of the week, all year round, multiple places all around you. So that's a great way. Also, to work with somebody that is highly trained, to work with clients, you'll meet different practitioners. If a practitioner is constantly talking about losing weight, or if that's anything that they use as promotion, that's probably not what you're looking for. You're looking for somebody that will put puzzle pieces together for you as a unique individual and your circumstance, your lived experience, and teach you basically how to communicate with your body again, how to listen to the signals, timing of eating, and all those great questions about what is really nutritious for my body. What I ate at 20, I cannot eat right now. It doesn't serve me good because of my genetic makeup. So it's all very individual. Find somebody trained, and that you trust, because that's the other thing about the relationship. You have to trust them. I've had more clients that have tried to lie to me about their food to impress me, and I'm like, why are we doing this? I need to know exactly what you're doing, and I know you've done it too. I'm like, I don't want you to impress me. I want to know what's going on with you so we can help you. So that's a great way to also be able to get that support, because accountability, like teamwork, makes the dream work, right?
Yeah. Last thing I'll throw in there too, Jessica, is I'm a strong believer in supplements. Not a lot of them, just a couple. And so if you have any questions there too, a multivitamin is a great, a really quality multivitamin is a great way to just maybe cover some of your bases. It's not a substitute though. So yes.
Yeah, and especially Californians, seasonal, I can't think of it, disorder.
Affective disorder.
Thank you. Is real here for Northern California and up. So things like supplementing with a proper D3 and K2 specifically in the fall and winter is so important to keep the good vibes rolling. So that's yeah, I'm a big advocate of a certain amount of supplements as well, with healthy eating and awareness. Beautiful. Well, we're at the time. I want to say thank you, Yvonne, for showing up and sharing all this. I'm sure you could see my head nodding with you as you were talking about so many things that are really personal to me as well. As somebody that has not allowed a doctor to weigh me in 4 years, you're going to the doctor for a service. Put it out right there like it's an interview. And I have fired many a doctor Don't be scared to use your voice because it's your body and it matters. And the right person will have those conversations with you and be respectful of it. I just had surgery. They did not weigh me. They
Great.
don't have to.